Good evening. Welcome to Talk Ottawa. The City of Ottawa has approved development in the Canada South March Highlands. It's a controversial move that some people are still opposed to, even though the developer is saying that the work is going to go ahead. Tonight we're going to find out what the opponents have to say about it, why they want to see this development stopped. We are joined tonight by Paul Renault, who is a spokesperson for the Coalition to Protect the South March Highlands, Danny Beaton, who is a Mohawk of the Turtle Clan, and Danielle Bernard, who is an Algonquin of the Beaver Clan. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. And Paul, maybe you can start and talk about why some people in the community are opposed to this development proceeding, even though the city has basically allowed it to go ahead.
Well, I mean, Mark, if you ask yourself the question, would Vancouver allow developers to develop in Stanley Park? I think you would probably get a synopsis of that kind of encapsulates what's wrong with this. Is the South March Highlands are the most biodiverse area in the city of Ottawa. It's home to over 20 species at risk. It's an incredibly biodiverse area, and it's also representative of the culture history of First Nations who preceded the white settlement here. And it also has a unique geoheritage that's unseen anywhere else in Ottawa. So for a whole vast array of reasons, this is the wrong place to build houses.
The city, though, has said the development can go ahead, and some of the clear cutting has taken place. So you haven't given up, obviously. You still want to stop this from happening. What opportunity is there for you to stop it from happening now? What channels are still available to you?
Well, as you point out, we believe that it's never too late to do the right thing, and what we're trying to do is to wake up the political leadership that is completely absent on the scene and say, where are the leaders? Why isn't the NCC taking action to promote and expand the Greenbelt into this area? Why is the provincial government doing nothing to protect cultural heritage and species at risk in the area? And why is the City of Ottawa continue to sprawl?
So you're hoping that political leaders will change their minds, basically. Is there any other avenue available to you?
Well, we tried the courts, and what we discovered was the environmental legislation in Ontario is so weak that it's impossible to enforce something as simple as when they did an environmental assessment for Terry Fox Drive and they promised certain mitigation measures, and then they turn around 5 years later and they implement the exact opposite, that they're allowed to get away with that. So when you see that kind of loophole being used, it's pretty clear that the courts are not going to be of much use. So that leaves the political option, quite frankly.
All right. The Canada Northlands Company, by the way, which is a partnership between Urbandale and Richcraft, was offered the opportunity to participate in the program tonight, and they declined, saying as far as they're concerned, the issue has been dealt with and that development is proceeding because City Council has authorized that to happen. So they did have the opportunity to participate and chose not to. Danny, maybe you can talk a little bit about, from your perspective, why it's so important for this development to be stopped. What makes it such an important Aboriginal site?
Thanks for asking. Our elders and our people, our chiefs and clan mothers, they're aware of what's happening around this territory with the Algonquin people, with the leaders of the Algonquin people. Our spiritual leaders have a relationship with William Commanda. Our elders and chiefs and clan mothers, they have a relationship that goes back to the United Nations when they had the conference Cry for the Earth. And that was in the context of the Earth Summit. And this took place in the United Nations, where we also have a relationship with Bob Lovelace, who is a spokesperson for the Algonquin. Our elders believe that this is a place where the Algonquins go for healing. Our elders are supporting the Algonquins in this struggle, and they're very, very upset that the Beaver Pond Forest has been raped, and we have experience in dealing with developers from Caledonia to the golf course struggle, and myself, I'm committed to working with Daniel Bernard and the elders, William Commanda and Bob Lovelace, in any way we can stop further destruction to the forest and protect the animals that are living there. There's more than just money to be made from that,
Okay.
from cutting down the trees.
So, Daniel, maybe you can talk some more about why this piece of land in particular is so important.
Absolutely. First of all, Mark, I'd like to bring greetings from Grandfather William Kamada, who's not able to be here today, but he sends his greeting. And Grandfather William Kamada is a man of extremely great wisdom. He received many prizes, many awards, such as he's an officer of the Order of Canada. He also a holder of the City of Ottawa, hold the key of the City of Ottawa. You would think that the politician would take note to this and would pay respect to, the fact that they've given these awards, and but they're not paying any attention to this, and we're still waiting for answer why they're not paying attention to. If you give the greatest reward a Canadian can receive, which is an officer of the Order of Canada, you'd think that that person would have some sway, or at least people would listen, but the political leader are not listening. It's important, this forest is extremely important. Actually, the whole landscape is very important, because the South March Highlands were first to emerge about 10,000 years ago when the Sea of Champlain receded. So you can imagine that as the first to emerge from the then receding ocean, that the people at that time would have taken this as very precious, and actually would come. And we have proof, recent proof that this is happening, that in the past people lived there and used the place. So it's important for us to understand these things, this legacy. And it's important because William Commandant declared it sacred. It's very rare that you hear an elder declare an actual place sacred. And in his great wisdom to declare this, I got involved personally. I wanted to feel and understand his words, so I got involved and totally understand and respect what he's saying.
All right, so as far as you're concerned then, because some people may not understand the dynamics around what land is sacred and what land isn't, this is not just any piece of land then. This is not, Paul, you spoke to how this predates the arrival of Europeans in North America, but of course all the land in Canada predates the arrival of Europeans in North America. So just help people understand what it is that's special about this particular land that makes it different from other pieces of land where you wouldn't object to development taking place.
Absolutely. It has many aspects to it. Like Paul mentioned, the wildlife to Anishinaabe or Algonquin people is sacred, and in that area the wildlife is abundant, very, very abundant. Over 136 species of bird are nesting there, and these are the ones who are nesting in that area, which is not that large. On the aspect of why it's precious to Algonquin people, and not just Algonquin but all indigenous, is that to this date, Paleo-Indian artifacts are not quite well understood because they're so old. We're talking about things that are 10,000 years old, so twice as the age of the pyramid. You think that the City of Ottawa would be understanding that this heritage need to be protected at all costs, because once it's gone, you can never, it's not something you can take to a museum. These are things that yet have to be understood. They were left there by the ancestor for us to understand. If we were telling you that there was dinosaur bones in there, people would probably stop and say, wait a minute, we're going to look at, well, there's things that are older than dinosaur age in there.
Now, there was an assessment done, Paul, if I'm not mistaken, that said that the area was not a significant archaeological site, and in fact, provincial ministries have looked at this. Are there still artifacts that are on the site that could be of benefit in
it's important to understand,
historical context?
It's important to understand that when we talk about the South March Highlands, we're talking about land that's not just owned by KNL. There's land that's owned by the city, there's land that's owned by other developers as well. And in total, the area is abundant, and in fact, the city has designated the entire area as being of significant archaeological potential. And if you actually go to their city websites, you go to eMaps, you can actually see the map of what they designate as high potential. And in Ontario, they're supposed to have a master archaeological plan developed in order to understand what areas should be developed and what areas shouldn't from an archaeological perspective. Ottawa has failed to do that. And in fact, when we point out this to the Minister of Culture, he simply punts the issue back to Ottawa, knowing full well that Ottawa doesn't even have a single archaeologist on staff. And here you have a scenario where you have the second largest city in Ontario that doesn't have an archaeologist on staff. You can bet that there is no other city in Ontario other than maybe Toronto that it does. Therefore, the whole process for protecting archaeological and cultural heritage in Ontario is seriously broken, because it's, the responsibility falls to a municipality that has no capacity or skills to do it. And so there are archaeological sites that we've identified to the City of Ottawa that they've yet to assess nearly a year later. So they're purposefully...
So you're saying a proper assessment has not been done on whether this is an archaeologically significant site or not?
Well, that's right. And the assessment that was done by KNL, which as a condition of subdivision development they're required to do, they did a study where the archaeologist said that the area was not of major potential, and he only looked at post-contact archaeology. He didn't look at anything to do pre-settlement. And this was criticized. In fact, we have a paper that we had published that was criticized by Dr. Robert McGee, who is a fellow of the Royal Archaeological Society and a former curator of the National Museum here, that basically indicated that this assessment was seriously flawed in that aspect. And so we've asked for a review of the study. The Algonquin have formally asked for a review of the study. We have 6 Algonquin First Nations that have asked for a review of the study. The government has declined to accommodate the request, which is actually a violation of the Canadian Constitution.
Because they're not allowing the study to take place?
Yeah, what the Algonquin have asked for is a very reasonable request, which is that an independent review be done of the entire area. And that is the failure of the City of Ottawa and the province to accommodate that simple request before the area is destroyed further.
Now, to be clear, as you pointed out, it's the entire South March Highlands is not going to be developed, even under the proposal that the city has approved. There's a portion that will be, and there is a portion that will be maintained as a natural area.
Well, it's difficult to understand that, Mark, because first of all, the area that's already scheduled to be developed is half of what remains. Of the area that is not currently scheduled to be developed, about half is owned by the city and half is owned by other developers, and those developers are the same developers who just went to the OMB to ask for the urban boundary to be pushed even further out. We've already had cases where environmentally protected land was recently rezoned in such a way that would permit development. This happened this spring along Terry Fox Drive. And the government itself just put a 4-lane highway through a conservation forest. So it's tough to understand the word conservation in the same context as putting in a 4-lane highway.
You're saying you can't trust the government to preserve that land if they're going to allow development?
Specifically, we cannot trust the City of Ottawa to protect anything. There's clearly no track record. In fact, the City of Ottawa has the worst track record environmentally of anywhere in Ontario. This is the only place in Ontario where they've put a municipal drain through provincially significant wetland, as an example. It's the only place in Ontario where they allow a 2-phase approach for floodplain control, which is considered technically unsound, and in fact was raised by the Auditor General. The list goes on and on. So the City of Ottawa is incompetent, quite frankly, in my view, when it comes to environmental protection.
Now, Daniel, you've actually taken time off from your regular work to focus on this, to try to stop the development from happening. Is that right?
Yes, Mark. I